Well, hello, everyone. Today we're going to dive in and talk about what is creativity. Now, Sergio, I know that's a really broad question. That's why I want to dive into it today. But before we get started, how are you doing, Sergio?
I'm doing great, especially after spring cleaning that we talked about last week. So super excited now to go into creativity. I think it's a great topic and something that we could all as artists learn from. Yeah.
Definitely. I think sometimes creativity can be such a broad topic
Hmm.
that we sometimes forget like the fullness of everything that it is. I know that whenever I go work with leadership teams and I'm doing art making workshops and things like that, people always say, well, I can't draw a stick figure. Well, creativity isn't just about having the skills to create art, it's so much more than that. So let's just kind of get into some of those myths about what we have maybe thought creativity was, or maybe we've been told as children what it is, and how we're maybe busting those myths now as adults. So, Sergio, what are some myths that you feel like we have adopted to describe what it means to be creative?
I love that question. I think a lot of people think that creativity is only reserved for those who call themselves artists or who have
Mm-hmm.
a profession as artists, went to art school, and those are the guys who are creative. So I think that's a big myth.
Well, also, like, even as a child, the way that we connect to creativity is usually through some kind of art making class, whether it was art class or music class growing up, and say we weren't very good at it. Like, what, and those kids who feel like they weren't good at it maybe identify as not being creative for the rest of their life.
Exactly. Yeah. Hmm.
And that's really harmful because my goal is to help people understand that we are all creative. And the more we use our creativity, the better our lives will be.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. I think creativity is one of those things. I think for being humans, as being human, therefore, we have a level of creativity in all of us.
I definitely believe that. I think that creativity is a life force energy, the same energy that goes into creating our universe, that goes into creating our earth, is the same energy that goes into creating us and who we are. And then the extension of what we create and how we express ourselves. That is all creative energy. And if you think about energy, it's kind of like the way waves ripple through water. If you throw a rock into the water, like you can see the waves move, and that's acts as a vibration. And creativity is also moves in that way. So I think creativity can be something that is a moving, lifelike energy that I think we maybe don't focus on enough. Because think about it like this: say you create a beautiful art piece, and the energy that you put into that work is then received by the audience, and they can
Mhm.
feel it. They can feel the work. Like, how would you describe that experience when you're feeling the work of the artist?
Hmm. Well, I think the way I would describe it is like it's like that energy that is transmitted, like you mentioned at the beginning, right? That starts in the
Mm-hmm.
studio, starts in the process, it's done, and then now the on the receiver end, the viewer comes in and takes from that energy, comes out with his or her own interpretation, and that's where the creativity kind of takes full circle.
Yeah, so it's sort of an experience that we have
Yeah.
with our mind and our body and our spirit. And even if we weren't creating a work of art, say we were just being creative about making a decision about something, about how we want to live our lives or what we want to change, like that's the same type of energy that goes into creating a work of art. But like,
Mhm.
how do we take that moment that we have that creative insight and say, how do I get more of these? Because I know we're not just going to start taking showers every time we need to have a creative insight, because that seems to be where a lot of people get their best ideas. And so I know there's a joke, people who are like, well, I guess I'll just have to go take a shower if I want to figure this out.
Yeah.
But we don't have to do that every time. And I think the more that we connect with ourselves, the more we can connect with our creativity. So if there's a disconnect between who you are and what you're doing, I think that there's a lot of space there to explore so that you can access more creative thoughts.
Hmm.
What do you think, Sergio?
I love that, and I think everyone in this particular area, everyone will find different ways that will trigger their creative self because we are all
Mm.
different people. Like for some, maybe like in the shower. I never get ideas in the shower. I don't even sing in the shower. My goal is to get there as soon as possible. I think like for me, like I find myself more creative when I give myself permission to play, right, and to
Mm.
and to try and not judge the process, and then get serious on kind of what's happening. And that's kind of what fuels my creativity, fuels me going. So if I want to be creative in something, even if it's an email that I'm writing or a work of art, I just gotta get at it. I just gotta get at it, start putting words on that email or start putting marks on the page, and that process kind of gets me going. But it may be different for other people, and I think recognizing what is that the big trigger for you can help you out.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point that you made, because understanding that it is different for everyone and also giving yourself permission to explore what is the best way for you, but also an understanding that maybe all of us experience creativity when we are experiencing some type of opening. And so that could be an opening in our heart, opening in our mind, or even just an opening into the process by getting started and taking action. And so if we can think about it from all these different perspectives, I think it makes it a lot easier to get into. So if you're stuck and you're not feeling creative, just remember that. Give yourself permission to be open. Just start the process and see where it leads you without that judgment, like you said. Because what happens in our brain is when we start to judge ourselves and put pressure on ourselves, it doesn't allow for our brain to be open to those types of creative insights. Because what science will say is that you have to slow down your prefrontal cortex, and that's this part of your brain right here. And when we are worrying and busy and all of these things that we do a lot of, our brain hasn't slowed down to the point where it's optimal time for our creative insight to flow through. And so that's why I love this conversation, because not only are we talking about creativity and how we can use it, but how we can access it too. And I think there's a lot of mystery still around what creativity is. And that's why it's so fun to talk about, because it is different for all of us. And we see it expressed in so many different ways, whether it's through art or whether it's through problem solving or engineering or business. There's so many ways that we can apply this creative life force into the things that we do, that just having these conversations even helps me try to feel like, well, what do I need to do next to be more creative? Or I liked their idea. How can I adopt that into my life? And the more I think we have these dialogues, the more I think that we're going to be able to access it and then let it flow through. And then we'll just be in a more creative world in general. And that's really what I'm going for with the work that I'm doing. What do you think about how that kind of resonates?
I think that's great. I love that. And, because at the end of the day, creativity is problem solving, right? And we can apply that to any part of our life, at work, in our studio, in marketing, in social media, and all the things that we talk about, for the last 100 and something episodes, right? It's all part of that, trying to solve the problems that we encounter with in creative ways, in ways that will challenge the status quo, in ways that will free up or options, open up more opportunities. And that, I think all that comes from being more creative and giving ourselves that opportunity to practice that, and giving ourselves. And I think a lot of times, giving ourselves the opportunity to try and test and make mistakes is okay. It's part of the creative process too, where, I may start a painting today and it doesn't have to be a masterpiece. It may be a total failure, and that's okay. That's the next step to get me to the next painting, which will be much better.
That's right. And you can create total failures and still be creative.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So creativity isn't because you just have a masterpiece or you have a winning idea. It's really just the process of that space you're in when you're trying to create something new and allowing that energy to flow through you. So for those of you watching today, please go off and experiment a little bit. Try to connect with your breath, connect with yourself, understand who you are more and the work you make more. And I think you will be surprised how many creative ideas will flow in.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Well, thanks for watching today. I can't wait to have another great video next week. But first, Sergio, where can our friends watching find out more about what you're doing online?
Well, my friends, if you want to find me, just check out any of my social medias at Sergio Gomez Art. That's where you'll find me. And you can check out my programs at theartistneXtlevel.com. That's where you'll find everything that we're doing to help artists.
Awesome. And you guys, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Beth English. You can join the Nashville Creative Group on Facebook and Instagram, where we have conversations about art and creativity and community and connection, and how it's a beautiful thing that helps us create the best life that we possibly can. So would look forward to seeing you there. And next week, would love to connect with you again and see you watching another great video. So don't forget to like and leave a comment. We would love to hear from you and can't wait to do this again next week. Thank you, Sergio.
All right. Bye, Beth. Bye, everybody. Good to see you guys.
Bye.